Welcome to the Explainer. You know what? Let's just skip the agenda today. We're going to jump straight into a freezing January afternoon in 2009. Picture this. A light breeze is pushing across the Hudson River in New York City. Commuter ferries are just doing their routine routes, and on the streets of Midtown, the usual Thursday afternoon rush is just starting to pick up. Meanwhile, up at LaGuardia Airport, a completely routine flight is about to permanently change aviation history. 155. That's the number, and it represents the massive human stakes of what we're about to talk about. 150 passengers, including one lap-held infant, and 5 crew members are settling into their seats aboard a U.S. Airways Airbus A320 heading down to Charlotte. And literally none of these 155 souls have any reason to believe that in less than 6 minutes, they're going to be standing on the wings of their aircraft in the freezing waters of the Hudson River, completely unaware of the 150,000-pound unpowered glide they're about to endure. Okay, let's dive right into this. You've probably heard it before, but that chilling air traffic control transmission, "We're gonna be in the Hudson," really establishes the absolute gravity of this crisis. But what's truly fascinating, what really gets me, is the icy calm inside the cockpit of Cactus 1549 as those words were delivered by 57-year-old Captain Chesley Sully Sullenberger. Section 1. A perfectly routine flight. So the weather at LaGuardia that afternoon was clear and cold. Visibility was excellent at 10 miles. At exactly 3:24 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Cactus 1549 was cleared for takeoff from LaGuardia's runway 4, heading north-northeast over the Bronx. The initial climb was flawless, reporting 700 feet exactly as expected. But just ahead, there was this invisible hazard lurking dead ahead. Radar couldn't detect them, but a massive flock of migratory Canada geese was flying at nearly 3,000 feet directly in their flight path. Now think about this. Adult Canada geese weigh about 8 pounds each, and there were dozens of them. Modern jet engines are incredibly resilient, for sure, but they are tested to withstand a single 4-pound bird. This flock easily and violently overwhelmed those protective design limits. Section 2. The Golden Time. Roughly 2 minutes after takeoff, the routine abruptly ends. At exactly 3:27 p.m., about 2,818 feet in the air, multiple geese are ingested into both engines simultaneously in the span of a single heartbeat. Bright orange fire bursts from the nacelles. And then, something far more terrifying than the noise: silence. The reassuring hum of the engines was just gone, replaced by the bone-chilling sound of wind rushing over the fuselage. They had just entered what aviation folks call the golden time, that hyper-compressed window right after an emergency where the crew's decisions dictate the ultimate outcome of everyone on board. For Captain Sullenberger and his 49-year-old First Officer Jeffrey Skiles, their golden time window was exactly 3.5 minutes. It's honestly amazing how quickly muscle memory takes over. Within seconds, in a single instinctive action, Sully reached down and pressed a button to start the Auxiliary Power Unit, or APU, in the tail of the plane. This step was an absolute lifeline. It immediately restored independent electrical power and pressurized air. Crucially, it maintained the Airbus in normal yaw, which is a flight control mode that provides full stall protections. Sully's instant reaction kept that aircraft flying smoothly and prevented it from degrading into a control mode with way fewer protections. Section 3. The Hudson Decision. So the physics of the situation are just brutal. The plane coasted on its remaining momentum for another 19 seconds, reaching a peak altitude of just 3,060 feet before gravity finally took over. Coasting as a 150,000-pound glider over one of the most densely populated cities on Earth, their options were desperate. Notice the stark contrast here between what air traffic control could offer and the physical reality of the jet. Departure controller Patrick Harton urgently offered option 1, LaGuardia runway 13. But turning back required a wide, sweeping reversal that would bleed off altitude they simply did not have. Then he offered option 2, Teterboro, just 7 miles west. But utilizing his pure intuition as an experienced glider pilot, Sully literally felt the energy draining from the airframe. The calculated decision was made. The river was wide, flat, and lined with ferry terminals. And then came those chilling words. "This is the captain. Brace for impact." Back in the cabin, 3 flight attendants, Sheila Dale, Donna Dent, and Doreen Welsh, who shared nearly 100 years of combined service, immediately began shouting the brace commands they had rehearsed hundreds of times, but absolutely never, ever expected to actually use. Let's look at this timeline, because the sheer terrifying speed of the whole thing is just hard to wrap your head around. Cleared for takeoff at 3:24 p.m., the devastating bird strike at 3:27 p.m., Just 19 seconds later, they hit their peak altitude, and by 3:30 p.m., Sully has aligned the plane south, parallel to Manhattan, used partial flaps 2 to reduce stall speed, and touched down in the Hudson River at 125 knots with an 11-degree pitch. 3.5 minutes. That is the whole shebang, start to finish. Section 4, brace for impact. Now, this touchdown was anything but gentle. They hit the water with a violent descent rate of 13 feet per second. Passengers describe this massive jolt like hitting a physical brick wall. The left engine simply couldn't withstand those forces. It was literally torn right from its pylon and sank. The aft fuselage cracked, and frigid water immediately began pouring into the rear of the cabin. Flight attendant Doreen Welch actually suffered a deep leg laceration from the impact, yet heroically continued to direct passengers forward, away from the rising water. But despite that incredibly violent touchdown, here is the absolute craziest part. The fuselage held together. The wings remained attached, the aircraft did not cartwheel, and it did not break apart. It just slid across the water and came to a rest. A catastrophic crash had been masterfully turned into a fight for survival. Section 5, the 24-minute rescue. Picture the scene outside the plane. It's completely surreal. Passengers poured onto the forward slides, which doubled as life rafts, while others stood directly on the sinking wings as freezing water crept right over the edges. But Sully's deliberate calculation to land near the ferry terminals, that paid off immediately. Within exactly 3 minutes, the first NY Waterway ferry pulled alongside the plane. By 3:55 p.m., exactly 24 minutes after impact, every single soul had been rescued. It was this massive, lightning-fast coalition of 7 ferries, the Coast Guard, the NYPD, and 140 FDNY fighters pulling 155 people from the freezing water. Captain Sullenberger walked the flooded aisles to make absolutely sure the plane was empty, stepping onto the wing as the very last man off the aircraft. Section 6, Anatomy of Survival. So, in the aftermath, the National Transportation Safety Board recovered the aircraft and began its investigation. And they had to answer this fierce public debate that basically started the minute the news broke. Could they have made it back to a runway? To figure this out, Airbus actually ran simulations in Toulouse, France. And yeah, sure, if the simulator pilot turned back immediately, with 0 assessment time, no moment of confusion, knowing exactly what was going to happen in advance, they could land. But that's simply not human reality, right? When they added a highly realistic 35-second delay for the crew to recognize the dual engine failure and make a decision, the simulated flights catastrophically crashed into populated areas or fell desperately short of the runway. The simulator results completely validate the Hudson decision. The river was literally the only survivable choice. And that brings us to the NTSB findings, which highlight exactly why they survived. They specifically praised Sully's instantaneous APU decision as pivotal. But it is truly incredible what First Officer Skiles accomplished here. Under extreme pressure, with the ground rushing up at them, Skiles flawlessly executed the dual engine failure checklist. Investigators noted this checklist was actually designed for high-altitude failures. It was not optimized for a low-altitude nightmare. Yet he completely crushed it. Ultimately, the investigation resulted in 35 safety recommendations that changed aviation forever. Honestly, it all comes down to this number right here, 35,306. That's the combined flight hours of Captain Sullenberger, who had 19,663 hours, and First Officer Skiles, who had 15,643. Even though Skiles only had 37 hours specifically on the A320, their foundational airmanship was just monumental. This wasn't luck. This was literally lifetimes of rigorous training perfectly coming together in a 3.5-minute window. Which leaves us with one final thought for this explainer. The media very quickly dubbed this the miracle on the Hudson, but Captain Sullenberger himself really resisted that term. Today, that very A320 sits in a 35,000 square foot gallery, serving as a permanent reminder. So I gotta ask you, looking at the physics, the simulator data, and the lifetimes of experience on that flight deck, was this really a miracle? Or was it simply the ultimate triumph of 2 hardcore professionals who were perfectly ready for a moment they hoped would never, ever come?